They taught humanity to kneel before glittering thrones, polished lies and hungry powers dressed like gods. This scroll pulls back the velvet curtain and exposes the ancient theft of inner light, the systems that fed on devotion, and the deep truth behind why so many were trained to worship what was draining them. Before the false crowns rose, the living spark was already within. But a people who forget their own flame will mistake predators for prophets, power for holiness, and hunger for heaven. So let this scroll open the hidden chamber and remind the collective, not everything above you is for you, and not every shining being carries light.
Universal Currency Receipt, Architect Musician 3611027, The Graceful Whisperer, Devalan Seal.
Scroll of the Stolen Light. Hear it plain. One of the oldest tricks ever played on humanity was not just war, not just slavery, not just empire. It was persuasion. It was getting people to kneel to what was above them in rank, spectacle, knowledge, force, costume, ritual, or mystery, and then convincing them that kneeling was wisdom. That is the theft. Human beings came into this world carrying breath, conscience, instinct, imagination, inner fire. Call it soul. Call it spirit. Call it the living spark. The name matters less than the pattern. They were born with something direct in them, and from the earliest kingdoms forward, powerful beings, powerful classes, and powerful systems learned how to intercept that directness. So the people were told, over and over in 1,000 costumes, you are not enough on your own. You are not safe on your own. You are not holy on your own. Truth is far from you. Power is above you. The gods speak to us, not to you. The king is chosen. The priest is ordained. The empire is destiny. Your job is obedience. And human beings, beautiful chaotic creatures that they are, kept falling for the performance. Give a predator a gold robe and half the world calls him divine. Give a liar a temple and they call him a bridge to heaven. Give a conqueror astronomy, writing, polished stone, and enough ceremony, and suddenly people forget he still bleeds like everybody else. That is one of the deep historic truths. Across the ancient world, rulers and priesthoods fused power with the sacred. In Egypt, kingship wore divinity. In Mesopotamia, rulers claimed heavenly sanction. In Rome, emperors were wrapped in imperial cult. In many lands, bloodline, ritual, war, law, and cosmic language were braided together so tightly that questioning authority started looking like blasphemy. Convenient little arrangement, that. Because if a ruler is just a man, he can be judged. But if a ruler is presented as heaven's instrument, then resistance becomes rebellion against the cosmos itself. That is how theft graduates into doctrine. This is why so many societies were not ruled by force alone. They were ruled by interpretation. Somebody said the heavens chose me. Somebody else wrote it down. Another built the monument. Another lit the incense. Another trained the children. Another punished doubt. Soon enough, extraction had become sacred order, and robbery had a choir. This is how people began worshipping advanced beings over themselves. Now, let the blade go deeper. Not every advanced being was some glowing creature from another realm. A great many of them were advanced in a more earthly way. Advanced in literacy while others were kept illiterate. Advanced in architecture while others hauled the stones. Advanced in astronomy while others were told the stars belonged only to priestly eyes. Advanced in military organization, administration, theater, symbolism, mathematics, record-keeping, metallurgy, propaganda, and law. That kind of advancement, when married to appetite, becomes domination. Humanity keeps making the same mistake, confusing advanced capacity with advanced soul. A being can be more advanced in knowledge and still be morally diseased. A system can be more advanced in structure and still be parasitic. A ruler can be more advanced in statecraft and still be spiritually rotten. A priest can know the calendar of the heavens and still be a fraud, chewing on the weak. This is where the esoteric layer enters, not as decoration, but as the hidden anatomy of the thing. Across traditions, people described forces that feed on human energy. Some called them archons. Some called them devourers. Some called them false gods, ruling powers, hungry spirits, parasitic intelligences, counterfeit lights. Different names, same sour smell. Something feeds when human beings forget who they are. Whether you take those beings literally, symbolically, or politically, the pattern does not change. Fear feeds them. Worship feeds them. Shame feeds them, self-betrayal feeds them, ritual without understanding feeds them, obedience without conscience feeds them most of all. That is how inner light gets drained, not always by a dramatic monster leaping out of smoke. Humanity loves theatre, but the real machinery is usually colder than that. Inner light is drained when a person stops trusting their own direct relationship to truth and begins outsourcing their soul to thrones, systems, hierarchies, bloodlines, ideologies, gurus, empires, and polished authorities. The draining happens when people are taught to become smaller, so something above them can become larger. That is the devouring. A false god does not have to rip the heart from your chest. It simply teaches you to hand it over willingly. It trains you to admire what consumes you. It makes you call dependence devotion. It makes you call diminishment discipline. It makes you call fear reverence. It makes you call exhaustion righteousness. It makes you pour your fire upward into structures that never loved you, then wonder why you feel cold. That is why so many people perish long before burial. Their body is alive, but their spark is leased out. Their mouth still moves, but their voice is gone. Their eyes still open, but their vision belongs to a system. Their labor is not theirs. Their joy is not theirs. Their imagination is not theirs. Their moral nerve is not theirs. Their inner altar has been occupied. And because humanity has always loved a shiny lie with a deep voice, they often thank the occupier for the privilege. There is the dark comedy. A wise elder with no costume will be ignored, while a decorated fraud with a title and a theatrical pause will have lines out the door. A grandmother with direct discernment and common sense will be dismissed, while a stone-faced manipulator with a sacred office and some polished symbols will be called a messenger of destiny. A people will mock the one who says the source is alive in you, then bow all week to men who feed on humiliation, fear, and tribute. Ridiculous, ancient, ongoing. This is why the accidental spelling tells the truth better than the textbook. People do not just worship, they warship. They build ships of war inside the mind and launch them toward whatever promises order, superiority, protection, chosenness, or salvation. They fill those ships with loyalty, fear, tribal identity, hatred, guilt, and longing. Then they hand the wheel to beings and systems that steer straight toward sacrifice. The altar becomes government. The government becomes extraction. The extraction becomes culture. The culture becomes identity. The children inherit the cage and call it reality. That is how false divinity survives. It does not survive because it is truly divine. It survives because it is organized, rehearsed, inherited, and defended. It survives because memory is damaged early. It survives because a people cut off from their own source become desperate for substitute sons. And substitute sons are always expensive. They take your labor, they take your children, they take your blood, they take your attention, they take your sensual life, they take your courage, they take your ability to stand upright inwardly. Then, once the harvest is complete, they leave the shell and call the shell loyal. This pattern sits under kingdoms, cults, empires, abusive religions, colonial projects, bloodline obsession, personality worship, ideological fanaticism, and even modern machine systems dressed as progress. The old world said, bow before the God King. The newer world says, bow before the institution, the algorithm, the state, the expert class, the spectacle. Same appetite, different haircut. That is why the deepest historical truth is not merely that humanity was ruled. It is that humanity was trained to participate in its own dimming. The deepest esoteric truth is that whatever feeds on your forgetting is not your savior. Anything that requires your self-erasure is feeding on you. Anything that grows stronger as you grow smaller is feeding on you. Anything that demands worship but never restores dignity is feeding on you. Anything that cuts you off from conscience and calls that peace is feeding on you. Anything that takes your source and offers you dependency in return is not holy. It is hunger in costume. And this is the part the devourers hate. They do not actually create the original light. They cannot. They can redirect it, tax it, exploit it, harvest it, seduce it, frighten it, and confuse it, but they cannot generate the living flame itself. That is why false thrones are always hungry. They have no sun of their own. They survive on borrowed fire. So when a human being remembers, something ancient breaks. When a person says, my spirit is not your food, a chain cracks. When a person says no title outranks truth, a mask slips. When a person says no ruler, priest, teacher, movement, or unseen force gets my soul in exchange for belonging, the parasite starts starving. When a person returns to direct conscience, direct source, direct inner authority, the whole feeding structure trembles. This does not mean arrogance. It does not mean worshipping the ego. That is another trap. It means remembering that true divinity does not ask you to crawl so it can stand tall. What is truly aligned with the highest strengthens life, conscience, courage, responsibility, and love. It does not drain them. It does not demand your diminishment as proof of devotion. It does not eat your center and call it communion. So let the truth be said without perfume. Many advanced beings were never advanced in spirit. They were advanced in access, manipulation, organization, spectacle, and control. Many gods of history were tangled with empire, priestcraft, bloodline theater, and social domination. Many unseen devourers described in esoteric traditions mirror the same predatory pattern found in earthly institutions. History and esoteric knowledge meet in one brutal lesson. Humanity is most easily consumed when it forgets the source within and kneels to power outside itself. That is the scroll. Not every bright thing is benevolent. Not every throne is sacred. Not every temple houses truth. Not every advanced intelligence loves life. Some simply learned how to feed elegantly. And the final law carved beneath all of it is this. Your inner light was never made to be tribute. Your soul was never made to be livestock. Your breath was never meant to be taxed by false gods, false rulers, or false systems. Bow only where love does not feed on your diminishment. Everything else is appetite wearing ceremony. Closing scroll of wisdom. Let the collective remember. Not every throne is sacred, not every shining thing is light, and not every being above you is for you. Anything that asks you to shrink so it can rise is not holy. Anything that feeds on your fear is not love. Anything that devours your spirit and calls it devotion is a thief in ceremonial robes. So guard your flame. Question the glitter. Honor the source within. And never bow so low that you lose the light you were born to carry.
Channeled by your architect musician, 36110, 27 palms of eyes. Your golden whisperer, sea star, Devalan, see all. Apply the news you can use, truth and accuracy. The real non-bedazzled jewels.
Many will repeat, if it feeds on your dimming, it was never divine.
To our beautiful collective, from our day ones to every new soul joining this journey, we love and appreciate you deeply. You've turned this space into so much more than a community. You've made it a family. Thank you, truly. Your presence, your energy, and even the smallest acts of kindness have the power to shift the compass for many in ways unseen but deeply felt. Here's to each of you, old, new, and the many more to come. We're just getting started, and we're so grateful you're here with us. With love and infinite appreciation from the collective of Shaman Ahll.
They called it worship, but too often it was surrender. This scroll exposes the ancient theft of inner light and the powers that grew fat on human forgetting. Anything that feeds on your dimming was never divine.